Yeah, what did you guys think? What did you like about that? What do you think was working well? Let's get you in the mode of critiquing each other's work by critiquing this professional piece of work.
I feel like the style was pretty like universal throughout. It was present and nothing really stood out where I was like, oh, that doesn't fit what
Mm.
started out as the beginning. It was pretty concrete throughout the whole thing, and I liked that.
Had a lot
Yes, very.
to go along with the script, and it illustrated everything perfectly. And there were some scenes where, even though there weren't any illustrations, they were simple enough that you could at least imagine it in your head because the artist had already kind of paved a way for you to see, the same imagery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
I
even.
also really liked the transitions. I felt like it helps make the whole thing super smooth and interesting because a lot of the actual frames were really simple, but because of the
Mhm.
way they worked together, it made it feel a lot more cohesive and artistic. So I liked that.
Yeah, what did you guys notice about textures in the piece? Here, I'm gonna pull it back up again and sort of scroll through it.
I was about to mention that actually. I love the textures that they added and made it look kind of papery and things like that, add like a grain to things
Yeah,
or brush
how would you?
strokes.
Yeah, it's like paint, right? Paint strokes. I mean, clearly the basis of these illustrations is vector artwork, right? But it doesn't feel sterile, it doesn't feel computery because of those textures that they're painting in the background. And this scenes like this are extra. I mean, I'm not sure if that's, a layer overlay or if there's actual something more complicated going on, but just really, really great stuff. Um, Transitions are so important from scene to scene, and this one has great transitions. It's kind of a mixed media piece. Yeah, so you've got this grain texture, you've got paint texture, you've got the vector texture, you've got, so the type, not really hand drawn, right? It's got that boil effect on it where it looks like everything's moving at all times. It's kind of an organic effect, but it's a digital, it's an After Effects effect.
How do you get that effect of having
It's
words or things constantly wiggle?
it's called turbulent displace. It's easy to do with vector shapes because if you convert a vector shape into a shape layer in After Effects, you can wiggle the edges. It's something you can do to every shape layer. But these, I'm thinking they're using that turbulent displace. It's closer to the boil effect. But yeah, you can tell the edges are wiggling here. And we can go over a few of those things today. We should probably do that first before we break into groups. Yeah, there's a couple different textures here and some sort of hand-drawn vectors that are working nicely here. Okay. Yeah, even this screen is nice, this typography screen. These extra shapes, extra abstract shapes. Yeah, look how the word commitment comes on. I mean, if you could just write the word commitment, right? But it sort of waves on like a flag. That's nice. So texture is super important. We should probably go over, and this is nice too. This is a very heavy painted texture transition over that little bubble right there. What do you think? Is that important enough to you that we should go over that right now? Learning how to use track mats to mask textures over your work? That's
Yes.
something.
I'd like to go over it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm recording this so we can put this on YouTube, and this will be a tutorial for masking textures. Let's open up, oops, After Effects. So what's the latest in your lives? What are your latest? How are you holding up? How are you maintaining creativity whilst in quarantine? Or are you not? You could also answer that way too. I'm not maintaining
It's
my
definitely
creativity.
tricky. I was kind of watching the animation in amazement, like what could they possibly come up with next? I feel like I would run out of ideas 10 times over in that. It was awesome.
That's kind of a long piece, right? And it's not too long, but long enough that it gives you time. It gives them time to tell their whole story, right?
My brother got back from his mission on
Oh,
Monday,
wow.
and my sister got married, and I watched it over Zoom.
What? Your sister got married?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I know, it's crazy.
Guess we don't really know when we're going to be able to get together in large groups, right? So you don't want to put off a wedding for a year or however long it's going to be.
Yeah, she kind of just figured they'll get married in the temple and kind of have a big celebration like they planned later, but they didn't want to move their date back farther, so they just got married civilly. And I'm in California, and I was watching my siblings so that my parents could go, and my dad married them in Utah. So
Wow. Your dad
I'm doing the
was
same thing.
you're
Wait,
doing the
what?
same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm getting married in my backyard. My dad's gonna marry us, and we're talking about, do we want to go like Instagram live, or do we want to Zoom call people that want to be there?
Yeah.
But we're having our celebrations later.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh my goodness.
So that's I've had like a weirdly busy week, even though I still have been home most of the time.
Yeah, I
So
Here at home because I don't have to commute to work anymore or
Mhm.
school. It's like I fill my time up with all. It's weird.
mhm.
It's hard to use your time wisely, I've noticed. Okay, let me share my screen with you. I'm going to go to Photoshop first, just in case you don't know where to find good textures to use in After Effects. I'm going to show you how you can make them. And I'm going to use an iPad because it's more fun and easier to paint, in my opinion.
What program do you use your iPad with your laptop?
I'm using AstroPad just because I haven't upgraded my Mac. If you upgrade your laptop and you have a newer iPad, you can just use Sidecar. It's built into OS X. I don't know if AstroPad's going to survive in the coming years, because once Apple sort of does what you do as your whole business model, then what do you do at that point? Let's make a black and white texture, and then we can colorize it in After Effects if we so desire. Wow, can you guys only see you can't see like any of my Photoshop tools or anything, right? You just see, in fact, I can't see my tools. There they are. All right, so if you haven't already discovered the magic of Kyle's brushes, you should. Let me try to bring my brushes. Okay, can you guys see this?
I can't see any brushes.
Yeah, me neither.
You can't see, that's disappointing. Okay, maybe
Just
I
seeing
should.
a blank screen.
You're just seeing a blank document. Well, I would highly recommend, okay, I'm just gonna have to share my whole screen. I hope you can see it. It's gonna be tiny because it's a big monitor. Stop share. Share screen. What about now? Now you can see everything, right?
Yep.
Okay, in your brushes panel, if you don't already have Kyle's brushes, you want to go to the hamburger menu on brushes and say get more brushes. And that's going to take you to a link on the Adobe website for brushes. And I believe all of these are Kyle's brushes. It seems like the ones on the top are the most useful, I would say. I'd probably just download the mega pack. That's like 300 brushes. But the brushes I'm going to use right now are the gouache brushes. And all you need to do is click download, and you're going to download an ABR file, which is an Adobe brush file. And the way that you get that into Photoshop is import brushes. Can you see that? You're going to import your ABR file just like that. And I've already done it, so it will appear right here in your brushes. So what I'm going to do right now, let's just use Gouache Bristle Super Dry. The names are really fun. The names sometimes double as band names, so in case you're in the market for naming a band. Gouache Bristle Super Dry. Oops, I'm painting with white. Okay. See how cool that brush texture is? I wonder if I should go bigger. You know what? I'm going to go with watercolor because they have a bigger brush. Just gonna delete this. I tried to delete it. There we go. Yeah, let's find wet media brushes. I think I have a dedicated watercolor. Here we go. Kyle's real watercolor. Let's go with big, rough, big wet wash. How about that? No, I'm going to go with Wamazing. I happen to have used Wamazing before, and I know that I like it. Wamazing Basic. Okay, if I go a little bit bigger here and change the opacity. I don't want to change the opacity. So these brushes are kind of like, they're not just regular brushes, they're presets, and they have a lot of things associated with them. So you can change the size, but you don't want to change much else with Kyle's brushes because they are set up to look very analog. Yeah, look at that. This is going to be a very rough texture. Oh, you know what? You know what I need to do? What I was going to tell you, when you want to use a texture within After Effects, I recommend using the highest resolution image possible. And I think what I'm doing here is 1920 by 1080. So let's go ahead and let's do like a 4K texture. 4000 by 2250. And you also generally do not want to paint on the background, just as a rule. You want to paint on transparent layers. So I'm just going to make sure I have a background layer and then a clear layer. Can you see what's happening over here in my layers panel? Got a transparent layer and just a white background. I'm hitting the right bracket to grow my brush. If you weren't aware of that shortcut, now you are. Quite handy. Oh, I'm painting with white again. Okay, I just flipped my colors and now I've got, oh, see how slow it's going? It's struggling to keep up with my screencasting and my astro padding and the Zoom meeting probably. Jeez. Bear with me as it catches up. Okay, this is kind of like a concrete looking texture. I just want it to be very gritty. I don't love that last bit I just did. Okay, so I'm just making myself it's like I'm making cookies, right? And I'm rolling out the dough right now. I don't know if you guys have been baking a lot, but there's been a lot of baking in my house. I hear that people are making bread a lot. Like there's a lot of bread makers, and it's hard to find, it's impossible to find flour in the stores, but like yeast and all that other stuff as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my cookie cutter. So I'm going to take the rectangular marquee and I'm going to say style, fixed size. And just because this isn't a giant image, I'm going to make my cookie cutter 1280 by 720, which gives me a cookie cutter of about this size. All right, and I'm going to Command J, which is going to give me a copy. So the thing about cookie cutters in Photoshop is you don't have to completely avoid the previous screen that you copied. I'm going to turn that initial copy off. You just need to get from different areas. So when it flickers, it will look like it's a new texture. Command J again. Stop me if you have questions. Grab one from there. Command J. I'm always making sure to grab layer 1 before I copy a new cookie. Okay, Command J. This is the part in the tutorial where I fast forward and show you the finished product, but we're doing this live. I don't want hundreds of thousands of layers for this exercise. I just want you to
You're
get the
gonna
idea.
put this on your YouTube, right, Brent? So we can go back and reference it.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the first thing I do after I finish teaching these days is to edit and upload the video. So yes. So if you want to say hi to your parents or something, this is going up on YouTube. This is going out live. Say hi to your friends. It's not the same as being on TV and saying hi. Okay, that's enough for now. What I'm going to do now is turn off my layer 1. Look at that. That's kind of a cool texture in itself, isn't it? I'm going to take layers 2 through 14, all of my cookies, and I'm going to align them that way and align them that way. And I'm going to turn off everything except for these layers and zoom way in. And I'm going to click with my marquee tool, which is 1280 by 720, because I want to crop. I want to crop right on. I could have used the crop tool, but I'm just going to use, since I already have a marquee tool that's sized exactly to what I want, I'm going to go ahead and go to edit. No, image crop. Okay, I'm going to save as texture with 2 T's for some reason. Texture layers.psd. Save that to my 380 folder. And I know that I don't need, well, I'm going to keep layer 1. I'm going to delete layer 0. Okay. Now let's jump over to After Effects. Let's import that PSD we just made with the layers intact. Composition, retain layer sizes. Merge layer styles in the footage. Sure, I didn't add layer styles. Double click that composition to get this. So we want a flickering texture, right? So how are we going to go about doing that? We have a bunch of long layers. What's your first guess? What's our first step? Taylor. Select all. I actually can't see my gallery of students right now, so where'd you guys go? I'm assuming you're still with me. Someone say present, so I'll know you're still here.
Present.
Present.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so I just did about a 7 frame. Ooh, yeah, 7 frames. That's kind of a lot. What's our frame rate here? Are you guys mostly doing 30 frames a second? If you're drawing by hand, I would recommend doing lower. But if you're just doing tweened animation, then 30 is great. 24 is film. I'll just keep it at 24. Another thing you can do, if you are going to mix tweened animation and hand-drawn animation, you can draw at 12 frames a second and just stretch out your frames. Sorry, stretch out your layers 2 frames, and they'll play back within the 24 frame per second composition at 12 frames per second. Anyway, I'm going to leave this at 24 frames. And let's go with, I don't know, 4 frames. Okay, After Effects remembers the order in which you select layers. So I'm going to go top and then bottom, shift click. I'm going to go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence, Layers. Do you remember when I showed you guys this after the Layer Olympics and you were so grateful? I'm going to snap the work area to my selected layers by hitting Command Option B. I'm also going to trim my comp to the work area. So now I only have, oops, you know what we need to do is change our background color. Command K, background color to white. There we go. There we go. It looks like granite, doesn't it? I kind of want it to flicker faster. So I'm going to select all, align all to home by hitting left bracket. I'm just going to move 1 frame forward, and I'm going to hit Option right bracket to trim all of my layers to 2 frames in length. And I'm going to go back up to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers. Hit OK. Hit Command Option B again to trim my work area. And I'm going to hit Command Shift X, which I just happen to know is the keyboard shortcut for trim comp to work area. I think all of you guys have that too. That's not a custom one. There we go. That's a little better. Kind of looks like static on a TV, right? Okay, so this is going to be our texture layer, and I can decide whether or not I want to, I'm going to put in a adjustment layer here. I can decide whether I want to colorize, whether I want to lighten these layers. You guys know how adjustment layers work, right? If I add effects to this top layer or color correction to this top layer, it will affect all of the layers underneath. This is the best and most efficient way to color correct images once you get them in After Effects. I'm going to add a levels effect, color correction, levels. And let's see, why is nothing happening? You know, I usually use effect, color correction, levels, individual controls. There we go. I don't know what's going on here, but it's usually easier to get things to change. This is just like the levels control in Photoshop, by the way. It's really weird. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so in Photoshop, all the layers are black. If here you wanted to like add color to it, is there like with which like adjustment layer would that be easiest to do it with, like to change colors?
Yes, we could change the color with, for example, effect, color correction, color balance, or hue and saturation, one of those. Yeah, if we wanted to colorize this. I'm going to turn off my levels for now. Actually, that helped the color, didn't it? But yeah, you can colorize with any one of your favorite Photoshop colorization tools.
Okay. And so I'm guessing you can also like do it in such a way that you can like start blue and then like start changing colors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. All right. So let's call this our texture, right? What we're going to want to do now is make our main composition, our master composition. And just to show you with a classic bouncing ball, and then maybe we'll do, well, you know what? That's all we're really going to need to illustrate this principle. All right, so remember what happens when you make a shape layer. The anchor point is always way out here. You're going to want to go to Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point in Layer Content. There we go. Now, this is a white shape layer. It doesn't matter what color it is to use this as a track mat. So I'm going to make it red so that we can see it on our white background. And I'm going to go back to my project. I'm going to drag our texture layer composition in. And basically at this point, we just need to make a track mat here. Let's make our shape layer a little bit bigger. You know, we should probably use something other than a circle because we're going to want to use some rotation here because I want to show you something else. Yeah, let's make a polygon. I guess a triangle will work. Let's go back to Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point in Layer Content. It's tricky to find the center point of a triangle, isn't it? Like if I wanted this to rotate on its sides, I would want to pull the anchor point down here-ish. That's actually a little big. Okay, so now we have our triangle. We basically can use a track mat at this point. I'm going to hit toggle switches and modes. And from our texture layer, I'm going to say use the triangle as an alpha mat. And now my texture, oops. Hey, what's the problem here? Our texture layer isn't long enough. So we can, do you remember when we did Pac-Man and we had that totally iffy script, that expression that we wrote that works sometimes on some people's computers and not on others? Let's use that again. First of all, how long is our, let's make our composition like 10 seconds long. And if you remember how we did that with Pac-Man, we essentially go to Layer Time, enable time remapping, okay, which enables us to control time. It also enables us to stretch our layer as long as we want it. But to get it to loop, we need to add an expression to the time remap. So, and the easiest way to add an expression is to option click on the stopwatch, which gives us this field right here. Can you see that I'm zooming in right now, or do you not see this? Does it just look the same?
It just looks the same.
Okay, curse. I can't zoom in. I can't zoom on Zoom, the irony. Okay, we need to type loop with a lowercase l, loop out. Hey, look, there it is. It gives us suggestions. And then we need to write the word cycle. I'm assuming some of you guys remember this. Loop out, cycle, and 0, which means it's going to repeat these two keyframes indefinitely. And let's just see if it's feeling saucy. Yeah, oh, there's a blink. And it completely disappears. Why is that not working? That's really odd that it chose to not work right there.
Isn't it because the triangle layer is not long enough?
Oh, you are absolutely right. Thank you, Juju. I missed that. Yeah, it's glitching, of course. If you wanted to avoid the glitch and just sort of force it to work, all you would need to do is get into here, increase the duration, and just duplicate your layers, you know. It's not the most efficient way to do it, but if your script is not working, that's another way to do it. But I, for one, I'm okay with the glitch for this example. Now, what you're going to have to do is decide whether you want your texture to follow your shape or not. See how the texture stays in place, but our shape can move around? I'm going to position and I'm going to rotate this guy. Let's rotate. Who can do the math here? If we need to rotate this to another flat side, it's going to be what, 120 degrees? Yep. Don't worry, I'll do the math for you.
Good work.
Thanks. All right, true or false? The texture is rotating with my triangle.
Seems like no.
It is not. It kind of looks like it because it's such an abstract random texture, but in fact, it is not. Let's add another 120 degrees. Oops, I meant to do a little pause. Let's copy both of those. Copy. Pause for 10 seconds. And then start walking again. I'm hitting K and J to jump between keyframes. I'm going to hit N to set my work area. There we go. Okay, so what would you do if you wanted your texture to stick to your shape? It's not as crucial here because it's such an abstract texture and I kind of like the way that it stays still. It's not super obvious that it's staying still, but all you really need to do is parent, right? All we need to do is parent our texture to our triangle. See the difference? I actually like it better when it's not parented. What do you guys think?
I think they're both cool.
Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome, bro.
Yeah, that's the basics of adding texture. If I wanted to add texture to the background, I might. Do I hear like a computerized dog? What's that? It sounds like.
I've been hearing that the whole time too. I don't know what it is.
I don't know what that is. Yeah, it's like the Sony Aibo or whatever. So what I might do here, if I wanted to use those textures, I might duplicate my texture layers and call this texture layers gray. And I might go inside and I might delete the effect, the hue and saturation effect. And I might go into my levels and make it even lighter and then use that as a background. Oops. Okay, I want to replace this texture layers with the texture layers gray that I just made. Does anybody remember how to make a clean swap?
Don't you do like command and replace, or like you drag it over with something? Shift?
You drag it over while holding down Option. Very good, Juju. Hold down Option as you drag it from the project window into the timeline. You don't even have to drag it right on top of it. It doesn't matter where you drag it, but it will replace it exactly. And what I might want to do, since it's going to have the exact same, well, okay, it's rotating, so There is quite a bit of difference. What I could do though, if I didn't want the textures to match up exactly, is now that they are two totally separate comps, I could actually go in here and I could just rearrange my layers, right? I could, since I mentioned before that when After Effects remembers the order that you select, I could just go in here and select them all in random order. Back here, 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 and here. So take a note, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2 through 14, and then layer 1's on the bottom for some reason. I'm going to go up to animation again and sequence my layers, and I'm going to see if it rearranges them. It worked. Okay, so now I've got a different sequence. It's like I changed the random seed of my background so it doesn't overlap too much with my blue triangle. We're going to need to do the same thing with our layer textures gray. We're going to need to add time remapping, enable time remapping. We're going to go to the end of our comp. We're going to option right bracket to extend it. We're going to option click our stopwatch to add an expression. It's this exact expression, so I'm just going to copy and paste. Yep, it's got everything it needs. So let's just see how long this lasts. Now the glitch is super distracting, especially on the background. So let's just do that thing we were talking about. We'll take off the time remapping. So what I mentioned is that, let's see, how long is our master comp is 10 seconds long. So what I might do is come in here and type in 10 seconds in the duration. I like whole numbers, so I'm going to type in 10 exactly. And just going to select all these layers in Command D, send those to back. That's Command Shift left bracket. It's kind of crazy dealing with these layers when they're not in order. I'm going to select all my layers this time. Take my adjustment layer out of it. Command D once again, send it back, Command Shift left bracket. I'm going to scoot these to the side. It's kind of driving me crazy that they're all in a different order now. But it kind of looks like looks like MIDI notation, or have you ever seen like a punch card for an old player piano? That's kind of what it looks like. I think the answer to that question is definitely no. I just decided to ask it for fun. Select all layers, Command D once more, send it back, and let's align these. So does that get us to the end? Almost. Let's just cut our comp short at like 9:09. Now, I think we've been over this before, but After Effects keeps track of the placement of your playhead. So if we're here in this comp and we come back to our master comp, this is where we were at in our gray texture layers. So I'm just going to set my work area to right there. I'm going to delete the expression by option clicking again and undo time remapping because we don't need it anymore because we just did it manually. And now we should have a non-glitching background and only a glitching triangle. So there's two ways to do it. One of them is more efficient with code, but more problematic. And the other one is more manual, but you sort of force it to work. And you get a cool texture like this. You get a pixelated rainfall. All right. Ooh, that was long. That took a long time. Sorry. What questions do you have at this point?
No question.
Taylor, I see you had a question in the chat. What was the website called that he downloaded the brushes from? I don't know what it's called because the only way really to get to it is from Photoshop when you go to your brushes and say get more brushes, because it's a really, really long URL. It's like adobe.com/products/photoshop/brushes.html question mark promo ID blah, 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 blah.
Okay, can you say that one more time? Just go to in Photoshop.
I thought you meant to say the URL again. Yeah,
No,
go to
no.
Photoshop. Go to your brushes panel.
Okay.
And see the hamburger menu? There's
Yep.
a link that says get more brushes, and that takes you to the website.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And this will all be on YouTube if you want to revisit this. Okay, if you don't have any further question on how to integrate textures, the same process, if you find some really high-res textures like a wood texture or a paper texture online, the same process, the same exact process holds. You just cut out a bunch of layers, cookie cutters. Chances are you're not going to find like 24 images. You're just going to find 1 or 2 images. Cut out a bunch of cookies, align them, layer them, and sequence them in After Effects, and then use a track mat to place them inside your objects. And track mats work for any kind of object, even your hand-drawn layers. If you have a hand-drawn rotoscoped layer, you can actually add texture to that as well. Anything that has an alpha channel, anything that has transparency around it will work. Okay, you all feel comfortable about that? Or should I go over anything else before we break into speed critique groups? Everybody practice your ability to put up the thumbs up symbol. Cambria, very nice. Maddie, excellent. Chandler. All right, all right. If you guys don't know where the thumbs up is, it's under the More button at the bottom of the participants list. Okay, you guys ready to break out into rooms? This will actually be easy-ish. Let's see. We've got 9, 10. We have 11.